Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Telit Cinterion webinar about the IoT connectivity journey. We are talking about key considerations for reliable and scalable solutions today. I'm Amanda Flink, the head of global events, and I will be moderating. I am pleased to be joined by Noam Shany, our director of connectivity product marketing here at Telit Cinterion. He is an expert in IoT connectivity and will be answering some of the biggest questions around keeping your IoT devices connected, resilient, and future ready. So with that, Noam, let's go ahead and dive right in if you're ready.
Yeah. Hello, everybody.
Perfect. So we know that IoT connectivity is at the core of digital transformation, but we also know that it's not always smooth sailing. So my first question to you would be, what are some of the common challenges that companies face with IoT connectivity, and how can they overcome them?
Okay. So to begin with, as you stated at the beginning, the IoT eventually splits into what we call the IoT journey. And the IoT journey eventually reflects from us is the main three stages of an IoT product. So it's easy to remember because it's like the early stage when you are designing and you're, on the sketchboard and trying to build your IoT product. Mainly there you're busy and need to put more focus on the hardware side. Obviously, this is the initial stage of the IoT product itself. The second stage that usually in the IoT journey will be the significant one is the rollout. Okay, you have your device, now you need to deploy it. What is the easiest, seamless way to deploy it? And the third one is what we call the operation part or the operate part of the IoT journey, lifecycle management, having the full visibility. Eventually, IoT, by definition, needs to be managed remotely. So this is let's say, the final stage, but it's the longevity part of an IoT product. So if we are talking about more considering that to specifically to connectivity, because this is the description of an IoT journey. So in the design stage, until lately, as I mentioned, mainly hardware issues. So product managers, engineers, designers build their own product or whatever. Connectivity was something that was addressed pretty much later on, morely by procurement guys, and sales, and mostly on the commercial aspect of the connectivity service, because it's a pretty much a commodity service that you would get. So not really a big hustle around that. But lately, you understand that connectivity is a crucial aspect of the IoT product. So you want to address that at an early stage, like security. Security elements back then were something you mostly didn't, it didn't bother you. You say later on, if something will happen, we will address that. So now connectivity is in a way similar to security elements. You can address them at this early stage, implement different services, and we will talk about it because this is eventually how we manifest this service. Let's say eventually it's all around eSIM. Okay, it's giving you a sneak peek to what we're going to talk a lot about this webinar. So eSIM, obviously, you can implement it. The technology is there. You can put that embedded in the early stage in the IoT product or the connectivity element, the connectivity module. The second stage, when you want to roll out, eventually you can do that in different ways. Again, legacy, you do that through the factory provisioning and processes, and this is obviously available right now. On top of that, you want the ability and the flexibility to do that not only in factory, and you want to be agile and flexible enough to do that even in field. Meaning I have different locations that I have my devices. I want to deploy that in different regions, different continents, different countries. I need the ability to do that remotely, not only in the assembling line in factory. So this is what we called in the business line the connectivity activation service based on cellular connectivity. So this is a real, let's say, a milestone for an IoT product lifecycle. You need to do the deployment. So this is another crucial part. And the third one, as I mentioned, you want to eventually, the day after you deploy is the day that the IoT product starts to live. And then you need to have the visibility to manage it. You need the ability to trigger automotive alerts or whatever you think is or visible for you to manage and maintain your deployment accordingly. And you want to have the ability to do remotely changes or to adjust according to different things that will happen. Let's say there will be degradation of a cellular service in a specific country. You want to access remotely to that deployment, whatever it is, and to switch and to change and to have backup to an existing service. You don't want in any circumstance to physically come to the deployment or whenever it is. Most IoT are deployed rurally, far from your reach, and just to send a technician to do a SIM swap would cost more than the whole life cycle revenue for an IoT product. Possibly, it depends on the obviously on the use case, but this is something that you would like to avoid. So design stage, rollout, and lifecycle management and operate are the, let's say, the milestones of an IoT journey. But
Yeah.
this is not the only thing, okay? And underneath that, eventually there are additional aspects of how do you choose specifically, but I think we will touch that probably later on. But again, just to clear it out, eSIM and eSIM new specifications and capabilities relieve a lot of the headaches and the overload of attention that you will need to bring to manage this kind of processes if you will implement it at the early stage that I would just explain. So.
Yeah, that's a great breakdown. So it sounds like connectivity issues aren't just about getting devices online anymore. It's about scalability, perhaps even regulatory challenges. So my next question to you, how does multi-profile SIM technology enhance resilience and surpass business continuity needs for IoT applications?
Okay, so first of all, eSIM. Let's start with about a little bit about definitions. So eSIM is something that we're talking a lot about. This has become like a common phrase. eSIM you have for consumer. This is what we are regularly using when we are using our iPhone, watches, or whatever. This is us as a consumer utilizing with an interface different connectivity providers seamlessly without switching or swapping a physical SIM card. This is for consumers. For IoT, this is not, it's not ready or future-proof enough because I don't have an IoT product or device or application and interface to manage that by myself, and I need to do that multiple by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands deployed wherever they are deployed around the world. So first of all, just to understand, consumer view and IoT view is completely different. So putting on top of that the complexity of what we called everything becomes mission critical, for IoT means even more, because again, if this is something mission critical for a consumer, I'm using a ruggedized phone, I'm a first responder, I can eventually manage and maintain this if something happened. I have I don't know, something is going on wrong in my device. Easily I can fix it. I can go to a shop or I can troubleshoot it by myself. But when I need to do that for tens of thousands of devices, as I mentioned, deployed around the world, I need this ability, first of all, to access them, to maintain and to change and to overcome this kind of let's say outages or problems that I need to troubleshoot. But when there is an outage, it means that there is no connection to the end device in the field. So this is the critical stage where mission critical application and assets needs to have this resilient capability to overcome this so-called offline situation that your devices are out there. So everything becomes mission critical in that case. It could be mission critical, business oriented. For an example, point of sales. You can't argue when one point of sale is going down and not working. It's literally a device that is bleeding money. So for business oriented mission critical assets, this is clear. They would need a clear backup that you can manage and maneuver between different connectivity providers. Again, you lately, until let's say a year and a half ago, you would probably put two SIM slots to manage different connectivity providers, each SIM for a different one. Now you could do that through your eSIM multi-profile. The ability to manage more than one connectivity profile on an eSIM gives you the ability to manage and to balance between both. So if one of them is down, or the primary one is down due to an outage, eventually we are talking about cellular connectivity, outages, and degradation of service. These are the main issues that can cause you or can cause your deployment to go down. So the ability to switch when one is off for any other reason that I just explained is the ability eventually to ruggedize your deployment and being more resilient and to answer the mission critical demands eventually from our application. So we talked about point of sale, so this is business oriented, but in the other hand, healthcare applications, this is even more clear to us. Until lately, most of the applications in healthcare were more localized, let's say short-range connectivity services like Bluetooth, local Wi-Fi, mainly domestic kind of services, and now it's everything is wearable and you could go out wherever you want to go, and this is based on cellular services. So you would need a monitoring bracelet for your diabetes or whatever healthcare application that you need to wear. You need it to work online on regular basis.
Sure.
So everything becomes mission critical in that aspect, and in a way, the answer to that is what we refer to eSIM multi-profile. Again, just to close it up, the ability to manage on a single eSIM more than one connectivity provider, and the ability to manage and to switch between them when an event occurs. The event, as mentioned, could be an outage of a cellular service or a degradation of the radio access, so you would need to switch to a secondary one. So these are the main, let's say, use cases in one hand that are more mission critical oriented, and the eSIM multi-profile, how it solves this or serves this situation. By the way, important to mention in this case, this is becoming more and more commoditized lately due to the new specifications from the GSMA. eSIM is not new technology. So eSIM was started like more than 10 years ago. The implementation or the specifications were released to the market, but just lately, the last year and a half, two, and the following year when we will have new specifications implemented in the market, brings the ability to manage that easily. It becomes something that we can afford. Eventually, IoT needs to be something affordable. Again, everything we need to multiply by tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands devices that we deploy. 10 cents on each one of them can affect dramatically on the revenue and the growth margin. So eventually, this is critical as well. So now we're in the merge of this technology that becomes more affordable, more advanced, that this is something that we can serve our customers, for an example, when mission critical oriented services are needed.
Yeah, so instead of being locked into one carrier, businesses can switch seamlessly, to maintain their connectivity. Makes total sense.
Even more than that, just one comment on that. So it's an excellent point. So you don't have to manage that always on the same carrier. Eventually, Telit is an IoT MVNO, and we are specialists in carrying connectivity services around the globe. Most of it, or some of it, is the vast majority of it is roaming based. So we can combine roaming, we can combine that with local services. If somebody wants to be closer to the local antenna of the local carrier and he loves to hug it, so he will get this service on the SIM, and if something will happen, we can switch to the global roaming one. So it's like there's enough room to play and to manage it and to make it more specific and accurate to the customer needs.
Yeah, I'm sure that flexibility must be a game changer for certain industries. You talked a little bit about some of those industries. Can you give me a quick answer on which would benefit most from resilient IoT connectivity solutions?
So again, it's like I would say that most of the cases, or pretty much each vertical, will find this kind of service relevant for him. The decision is, if I'm managing, and I need to ask myself as a manager in a IoT product company, okay, I need to ask myself, is this important enough or crucial enough for me to make sure that that my application cannot work without any, let's say, nothing is 100% bulletproof, but with the minimum utmost uptime that I can get, and minimum downtime and maximum uptime that I can get from the service. This is an answer that the vast majority of the segments and the different IoT application would probably answer yes. There are some that they are less sensitive. Let's say, for sure, first of all, the non-online applications. So if I'm less sensitive to send the information or to upload some kind of information or to get feedback and reaction from the device that is deployed, and if the information will be received 4 hours later, or I don't need real online transaction, I can manage without this. Let's say if I'm what I'm called a power consumption sensitive application, this would be probably something you would less need to implement in your service. And by the way, battery consumption or power consumption sensitive related automatically to applications that don't need online services, because online services and downloading huge amount of data, if this is video analytics and if it's something else, would probably drain your battery in any case. So your problem would become not the connectivity, the fact that you don't have any power source to your device. So there are some places that are less relevant or less sensitive. Otherwise, everything else eventually becomes something crucial, or they will find something crucial in their application that eSIM multiprofile could serve and solve. So, in a nutshell, as I mentioned before, everything becomes mission critical. It all depends on the ability and the willingness, first of all, to implement that. Secondly, obviously, this comes with additional costs, but the ROI there is clear to this kind of applications.
Yeah.
So everything goes.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about industries like healthcare and utilities, things like that can't afford downtime. And you
So critical utilities, sorry for interrupting, you just mentioned that critical utilities, first responders, critical assets, putting aside again point of sales and healthcare, these become more and more clear. So for the classic mission critical verticals, this is something known since, I don't know, since ever. So more and more would find this something addressable for them. And again, because this is becoming more commoditized, pricing are more affordable, the technology is mature. Combining all this together eventually makes it something that you will need to implement, or you would like to implement in your deployment.
Yeah, some applications have high stakes.
Sure.
Let's switch gears just a little bit. Talk to me about some of the key factors that someone would want to consider when selecting an IoT connectivity partner.
Okay, so this basically it splits in my mind into two. So there's what you are demanding from the actual service itself, the functionality of a service. And on top of that, or let's say the first stage is what kind of company or provider would I or supplier would I like to work with. So let's start in this case, let's start with the second part. Okay, so the basic thing that I'm looking from an IoT service, this is what we call in the industry the holy trinity. In this case, is three things. Is first of all the technology or the cellular technology that my service will need to be supported by, meaning 2G, 3G. Okay, this is obsolete by 4G LTE, different variation, low power consumption oriented networks like CAT-M and narrowband, 5G obviously. These kind of technologies are crucial. Eventually my device depends on the availability of this technology wherever I need to deploy. So it started in the design stage when I'm choosing my connectivity product, the hardware that is related to the connectivity module, the cellular module needs to support specific technology. It depends on the variation of my IoT product. If it's a high-end product that I need to do gigabytes and I'm doing video analytics on broadcasting, so it will be 5G oriented services. If it would be a classic IoT use case, utility, telematics, or whatever, sensors oriented application, it will be low power oriented networks. So technology, cellular technology is one of them. The second one is coverage. So it's excellent to support the technology on the hardware side, but eventually, if I would like to deploy that, for an example, in Sweden, in Europe, and I don't have this network available, so I did nothing.
Yeah.
So technology, cellular technology, the coverage to complement that by definition. And the last thing is obviously price. As I mentioned before, IoT deployments, it's all about the numbers there. You're deploying by thousands, so it needs to be something competitive. I won't say cheap because it's in the eye of the beholder in this case, but for sure it needs to be something affordable and reasonable for me based on the actual product or application that I'm using. So the three main things: cellular technology, availability, coverage around the world or wherever I want to deploy, and the costs that eventually will complement this as a whole. So these are the three major aspects of the service itself. But
Yeah.
for me, this is not enough. This I can go probably and shop in a lot of places, but going one step up is the actually provider that I'm looking for. So for me, a provider, first of all, need a connectivity provider in this case, needs to be, first of all, a global oriented company.
Mhm.
I'm deploying my IoT devices in two different regions, in 5 or 6 or even more different countries. Until lately, you would need to use different connectivity providers for each country, meaning managing 6 to 7 different connectivity suppliers. This is like an operation hell. So
Mhm.
we need a global company that can provide all this under one hood. The ability to reduce the amount of operational overhead by managing one or very limited amount of connectivity providers is crucial. I can tell you that I have a customer that nowadays manages more than 20 different connectivity providers around the world. This is like full-time job for 3 different entities in his company. So eSIM, for an example, connecting a bit the dots for the on other stuff that we talked here. So eSIM overcomes this challenge directly. So you don't need to manage different connectivity providers. You can do that through a one eSIM with the multiple profiles that we can manage on that SIM card. And by that, eliminate a lot of companies or suppliers in this case that I'm regular to use with. So global company with that reach is crucial. The second thing is, and not saying something bad in any way on the big carriers or the MNOs, the local ones, an IoT MVNO company is an IoT focused based company inherently. So first of all, we are professionals. We know IoT. We're serving IoT, and I'm not talking about only Telit Cinterion. I'm talking about IoT MVNOs in general. We we adopt early this kind of technologies. Just for an example, the eSIM provisioning and the eSIM remote SIM provisioning capabilities, carriers, local carriers, even the big one, implement the consumer one because the vast majority of their customers are consumers.
Sure.
We focus on IoT, so we implement the IoT platforms or the IoT oriented services. So technology adopters are for sure the IoT MVNO. So global company, IoT MVNOs that adopt technology at the early stage, the extensive support demands for for a huge IoT deployment is something critical. So a company that its setup is to support this kind of demands, meaning not only 24/7 respond, this is one thing, but delegating tools to our end customers. So connectivity management platform. You can't really deploy anything without having a substantial connectivity management platform to have the full visibility and to monitor your deployments
Especially if you're managing at scale, right?
at scale and remotely. Eventually, again, you can go to the device if you are a local oriented service provider. You need to deploy in your hometown, so it's easy. Go on your scooter and go and fix the problem like in 10 minutes. But if this is in a different continent, in the field, because it's an agriculture, you know,
Mhm.
application, you need to have the ability to reach that remotely. So the connectivity management platform that addresses the scale of your deployment, considering the regions and the places that you deploy, it's not something nice to have. It's like the heart of a service. Okay. And remote SIM provisioning, as I just mentioned. So on the connectivity management platform that you can see your deployment, the remote SIM provisioning that eventually is the platform that manages the switches between the different connectivity providers or multi-profile service. In our case, it's implemented together in one infrastructure and one on one platform, but these two elements are crucial for that. So the supporting platforms in this case are again the heart of an IoT deployment needs. And if you can add on that device management capabilities, because you are or in our case, we supply even the connectivity modules, so or the cellular modules. So we can give on all three different aspects, the monitor of your deployment in the SIM level, the ability to manage switch remotely the different connectivity profiles, and to manage the device remotely. It's like a perfect fit for IoT products. So this is something clearly demanded. So we cover the global company, early technology adopters, the IoT MVNOs, and by definition, supporting platforms. The last one, and this is something that we, Telit in turn, bring to the table, the IoT as a profession. This is what we're doing. Okay, so we are like more than 30, almost 30 years, I think, doing IoT. So we have extensive experience in that, and this is something you look for your IoT provider by definition. You
Yeah.
can see not only the or troubleshoot only a connectivity hiccup in the network. You can connect the dots between if this is a problem on the device level, on the hardware itself, or in the SIM card, physical SIM card, or it's just local situation and the local antenna from a local service provider is off. This spider web kind of support is something that we as professional brings to the table, and I think that this is crucial when you choose your IoT provider in general and specifically regarding connectivity.
Yeah, it's really about finding the right balance.
For sure.
I have got one more question for you. How can companies future-proof their IoT connectivity strategies for long-term success?
Okay, so everything is about longevity in this case. So as we talked until now, we have like three different stages of milestones on the IoT journey. The last one, okay, let's recap for a second. Design stage, rollout stage. These are the two major ones at the beginning. But after that, when we deploy, this is the second that the IoT device starts to live. The vast majority of the cases, you expect from that thing to work for at least several years without any need to change, switch, physically anything. Remotely, firmware updates on the operation system level or whatever, this is something that you can do probably. Not probably, this is something that you can do. My intention is that you don't want to switch that physically remotely. So the longevity of a service in that case is crucial. The whole business model for IoT products relies on that. If I plan to deploy a service with a IoT device and I designed on my blueprint that this needs to work or it will work for 5 years without any need to switch or to change anything there. The hardware part would probably work, no problem. Putting aside battery oriented that I mentioned at the beginning, this is a different story, but the hardware itself would probably be relevant, okay? Not if you're not implementing inherently obsolete technology like 2G or 3G, that doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
but LTE, 5G, whatever, will hold on. But a connectivity service, if you would implement a service that would probably not support additional capabilities that you can get from network or services that are ready to be consumed, you would be in a problem. So again, sorry for name dropping that all over this discussion, but eSIM multiprofile or eSIM eventually comes to address this exact situation. When I'm looking for something that will be future proof, I need the ability to manage that remotely, seamlessly, and it won't cost me a lot of money like sending somebody remote, to switch something physically on that. The whole business model will crush the minute you will send a technician to do something physically on that device.
Right.
So easy multi-profile based on the availability of additional services addressing issues. And I will give you one example that maybe will make it even more clear. I'm deploying based on a IoT MVNO setup that it's mainly about roaming. So I have a SIM from Telit Cinterion that it's a roaming SIM. I have 600 and more different networks that I support around the globe. And you deploy this specific device in a specific country on a network. And for some reason, the agreements behind the scenes are changing. This is something that is, roaming is something live. It's like expanding in some cases. In other cases, we are reducing different services. This is all partnership kind of operation. Yeah. So at a certain point, the network that you were supposed to work on is shut down or increases dramatically the prices. This could happen. This is challenges that we face as connectivity suppliers. You need to have us as a supplier the flexibility to switch to a different carrier or to a different network or to a different altogether connectivity profile to overcome this. And this needs to be like transparent to a customer. He doesn't need really to feel that something happened to him.
Completely seamless.
Completely seamless. This is the dream.
Yeah.
It's like the holy grail. It doesn't work like, it isn't the something that is you can do all the time, all day long for any reasons. But in that specific point or situation, these are the tools for IoT providers to overcome these kind of challenges. So permanent roaming restrictions, changes in costs and prices in different local regions, and different, let's say, network anomalies, let's say it like that, that can happen in this business. Eventually, eSIM multi-profile capabilities can overcome and can prevail this kind of challenge.
Sure. Yeah. Noam, this has been just a great discussion here today. I think we're going to wrap up at this point. Audience, please feel free to visit the resources section here for some additional information on our topic today. There should be some blogs and a few other things for you there. Also can visit telit.com to watch other webinars on topics like these, and even subscribe to our different newsletters. Also, before we wrap up, I am going to drop a poll on your screen. If you would like to have one of our experts contact you directly, maybe you have some really specific questions about your IoT application, please respond here on the poll and I will have somebody reach out to you. Noam, again, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And thanks everybody who joined us.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.